Hey folks, I am the knitter behind the channel. I'm here to teach you how to do a knitted cast on today, which will involve a slip knot and casting on a few stitches, as well as I'll do a turn. I think what I'll do is I'll stick to about 10 to 15 stitches for the sake of length of this video. It is going to be raw, unedited, because this was an improv video tonight, and we'll see how it goes. So to get started, you'll want to get your yarn and your needles. I'm working with some circular needles today. If you have straight needles, that's fine. If you have DPNs, you may not be able to cast on as many stitches, but you can still learn with those as well. And by DPNs, I mean double pointed needles, so they're just tips on each end. I don't have a pair at the moment. So if you have them, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, ignore me. Except for now, you might want to listen because I'm going to tell you how to do the slip knot part. So set your tail down. This is your tail. And you know where your working yarn is. It's the part that's attached to the ball of yarn. And with your yarn, you'll want to wrap it around a couple fingers and create a loop. Now, what I'm going to do is take the tail end of the yarn and wrap it around the working yarn and create a bar in the back with the tail yarn, like so. So it's crisscrossed over here in such a way that it's not going to fall apart. So I'll try that again. So you have your tail is in your right hand over here, and your working yarn is in the left hand. You'll make a loop like so, and your tail yarn comes and crosses over the working yarn and then hangs in the back, creating a bar across this bunny ear that we created here. So this is your bunny ear, this little loop, and this is the bar between in the middle of the bunny ear. Take your needle tip and insert it under this bar from front to back, under the bar but over the bunny ear. So very important there. And once you've done that, you'll pull the working yarn to kind of close up the stitch so that it's not so huge. And you want to make sure to pull it so that the stitch is closer to the needle, but not so close that you can't slide it up and down like this. If you can't and it's too tight, it will cause you problems later on in your project, so I would make sure to back out and start over. If it's at this point, you would have to just start over. So now that we have that one stitch, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the knitted cast on here, and with this one stitch I insert my right hand needle from the front of the stitch to the back of the stitch. I wrap the yarn. Now whether or not you wrap it with your left or right hand is no matter. It's a matter of preference and the way you were taught or what works for you. You'll wrap the yarn over your right hand needle and pull it through. Now that the stitch that you just created is on your right hand needle, you'll take this stitch from your right hand needle and put it onto your left, like so. And again, it's through the front of the stitch. Okay, now we repeat that process again. You go through the stitch as if to knit from the front. So as if to knit means from the front of the stitch to the back. As if to knit, you wrap the yarn and you pull it through. Now that you have the stitch on your right hand needle, you take your left hand needle through the front of that stitch and transfer it from your right hand needle to the left hand needle. It came out a little bit big, so I pulled on the working yarn a little bit just to try to even them out. I wouldn't worry about that at the moment. You just kind of want to go through these motions until you have those motions down. As you get the motion down, your tension here will start to even out and you'll be able to tell. And you just keep doing this until you have the number of stitches your pattern tells you to cast on. Now, if you're a new knitter and you don't have a pattern at the moment, fine. You can cast on 50 stitches or more. It all depends on your attention span and how long it takes before your hands get tired. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on a couple more, and I'm speeding this up because I am. And I'm not going to go ahead and edit this video later to speed it up, so we're just going to watch Lorelei knit some more. So I have no idea how many stitches I have here. Let's count. It's like Blue's Clues. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go for 10. 9. And then I don't know what happened to this yarn here. It's just doing its own little weird thing, and I'm not going to worry about it for tutorial purposes. So again, I'm going in through the front of the stitch as if to knit, and I'm wrapping the yarn on the right hand needle, and I'm pulling that right hand needle tip through, and then I'm just kind of pulling it here so that the working yarn comes with it. It's part of why the stitch is getting so huge, so you want to make sure to start kind of balancing out that tension after a while and not pulling quite so far, because otherwise you're going to have a huge stitch like this. And fine, if you do it like that and you leave it like that and you keep on going, it's gonna look kind of weird, like it's not uniform. You can tell suddenly I've got these like giant stitches over here, and it's pulling so much farther from the needle than over here. And if you see that, I would just rip it out. Back to the point where you say, it's okay, I like this part, right? So we'll stay here. And then I just repeat the process. Going in through the front of the stitch as if to knit, I wrap the yarn on the right hand needle and I pull it through, like so. And then stick it on the left hand needle. And yes, it's huge, but that's this yarn and these needles for me, because I'm usually a sock weight knitter, so don't know if that yarn would even show up on the camera. And now I'm cheating and going into a different cast on because it's my usual cast on, which is the cable cast on. It's the same technique, slightly different setup, which is where you go between the two stitches and instead of through the stitch. Getting back on track, if you do the knitted cast on, which is what we're doing here, you go in as if to knit, you wrap the yarn and you pull it through. Now I've lost track again how many stitches we have on the needle, so I'm going to go ahead and count real quick, and then we'll go ahead and talk about turning. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches. Okay, well, we have 11, 12, 13, 14, and if you're thinking, oh yeah, you're showing off, great, thanks. It's this, just imagine this is the part of the video that was sped up. Alright, so we have 15 stitches now, I believe. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, okay. Now each stitch is one of these loops, if you aren't sure. So one loop, one stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Alright, so let's say the pattern that we have was for 15 stitches. We now have 15 stitches. We have to turn and knit the row. I'm sorry, we won't be turning because all the stitches are here already in our left hand. but we would go ahead and knit all these stitches because our imaginary pattern says we were going to knit the stitches. So at this point, to create that first row, you would go in as if to knit, like you've been doing, no change, and I'm falling off camera. So like I was saying, we have our 15 stitches here. We're going to go ahead and do the first row. And to do that, we would go in through this knit stitch here, as if to knit. You would wrap the yarn, and since we're going for our first row here, we are not going to put this stitch on the left hand needle. If you put it back on the left hand needle, you will be increasing. I'm sorry, by increasing I mean casting on another stitch. We are trying to create that first row here, so we are going to go in as if to knit and keep this loop on the right hand needle. What we are going to do instead now is take this loop on the left hand needle that we just knitted through and slide that off. This is now creating part of your first row. And you want to keep doing this until all of the stitches from your left hand needle are on your right hand needle. So again, you go in as if to knit, you wrap the yarn just as you've been doing, and you pull it through and you slide it off. You go in as if to knit, you wrap the yarn around the needle, you pull it through, and you slide it off. We now have 3 stitches here on the right hand needle. And you go in as if to knit, and you pull it off. Sorry if I'm going a little bit too fast. I will slow it down again for these last 5 stitches. And go in as if to knit. And you pull it through. This is uber slow motion. I'm trying. Alright, so you go again, you go in through the front of the stitch as if to knit. You wrap your yarn around the right hand needle and you pull the right hand needle through that stitch. And since we are in the process of making a row, we slide the stitch off the left hand needle, transferring that stitch to the right hand needle. Again, go in as if to knit. You wrap the yarn. Oh my god, and this is the part where I have no yarn. You'll start to feel the yarn tension from the ball. Go ahead and, just pause where you're at and, pull some more yarn from your ball. And then that will also help with your tension. And then go ahead and transfer that stitch. And actually, I'm going to say I messed it up. Okay, so if I messed it up here, what you'll want to do is take your needle from your left hand and stick it through the stitch below. And then just pull out that yarn. And just make sure to look for where your yarn is at. I'm going to quickly turn this over to the wrong side and see that the yarn here is connected to this stitch. Get my hand out of your way so you can see. So we can see that this working yarn here is attached to this stitch. It's going to be a little hard to see with this yarn, which is why I don't recommend it for new knitters. But this yarn is attached to this stitch. We can also tell because when I pull on it, it shrinks that stitch. Say that 5 times fast. Shrinks that stitch. Okay. Anyway, so flipping this back over so that we're looking at it correctly. Because remember, your working yarn should always be in your right hand. Or you go from right to left. So whether or not it's in your right hand may be a different story. But the yarn travels from the the right hand to the side, right hand side to the left hand side. And then you keep going. So knit 1, 2, and 3. So that's it. You knitted your first row as well as your first 15 stitches or casted on your first 15 stitches. Tips I have for you: you can just keep going. You would turn the work when you get all of the stitches on your right hand needle, you would just transfer back, and then keep going, and keep going until you're done, or you run out of yarn, or depending on your pattern. But for the sake of getting the stitches down, I say cast on probably 50 stitches if you can, and then keep knitting until you've mastered it and it starts to look even across the board. And also make sure to count the number of stitches when you're done casting on, just so that you know if you start with 15 stitches, each row should have 15 stitches. If you end up with 16 stitches, then that means you increased somewhere, which means congrats, you've probably learned something new by accident. But for the sake of learning, you were trying to stick to that 15 or whatever number you ended up with, and you want to stick to that number. How you increased will depend on what you did, and it's hard to tell. So I'll have to try to come back and make another video for common errors I've seen. It's generally that I'll find that instead of knitting the stitch, you just transferred like the stitch from the previous row or the cast on edge, and then you did a yarn over with it. But that's gonna have to be another video. I'll ramble on forever, and this will be like a 4-hour video for how to cast on. It's not what we need. You now have the skills to cast on a knitted cast on and knit the first row, as well as the second. It's just repeating that first row. You turn the work so that the work is now in your left hand. It's turning it from one side to the other. Once you've turned the work, you just go and knit down this way, and once it's all in your right hand needle again, you would keep repeating that process back and forth.